Hey guys, welcome to Finish Awesome Friday for another week. So this week we're going to discuss the third layer of awesome, which is within training, should I say, which is your accessories. So last 2 weeks we've gone over, the first week was the energy pathways, so obviously your phosphagen, your glycolytic and your oxidative energy pathways, why they're important to understand and how you can then utilize them within your training, how to dominate your training within one energy pathway whilst keeping the others in check. Okay, that's always important to do when you're training, especially in any sort of form. It's important, I believe, but especially when you're training for general fitness and you're just looking to enhance certain areas of your fitness, prioritizing the one energy pathway you want to enhance is always a better option. The next one we then went on to last week, we talked about volume, we talked about intensity, we talked about density, and we talked about quality. Those four elements of training are ways to help progress your training, to periodize your training, to get them to get the effect that you want out of that particular training block that you're doing from there. So if your goal is to build muscle, obviously volume was the one to go for. If it was to get stronger, then intensity. If you wanted to get better conditioning and lose weight, then density is always a good option to go with from there. And obviously as a beginner or in any stage of your lifting career, really, you should be looking to utilize more quality with the same weight to improve how you move with those said weights to sort of help prevent injuries and generally just look better when you're lifting that weight as you go along, as you get more advanced. So this week we want to finish off with the accessories. Now this hopefully is going to be what it is. What are accessories? They are the sort of the cherry on top of the cake. They're the thing that is basically going to make the difference between a good solid foundation of training and giving you those little extras that are going to push you onto that next level. So obviously when we talk about the three layers of awesome, we always like to think the first layer, the foundation, that is going to make you a good trainer if you follow those principles. If you want to be great, then obviously following the next set of principles is then going to be what you're going to do. And then for your peak, to be awesome, to go for that final little bracket, concentrating on this area will help you out. So when you're looking at your training, what should a good training practice follow? Well, generally, obviously, if we already say quite a lot, and we preach quite heavily here at UP Performance. Obviously, you want some mobility work within your training. Okay, so some form of mobility. It doesn't have to be over the top. It doesn't have to be anything too crazy or advanced. Just making sure that you can move properly, you can bend, you can squat, you can reach overhead. Those sort of things that are going to help promote good movement and good health in the future. It doesn't have to be, as I say, anything too ridiculous. But the better you get at mobility, the more mobile you are, the better you move, obviously, the better your body feels and the better you will train, because you will be able to get into better positions for your squats, for your deadlifts, for your Olympic lifts, if you so choose to do those. It has an element of compound weighted movement, so not just barbells, but barbells are obviously something I enjoy training with and many people do, but also things like kettlebells, sandbags, dumbbells, anything like that could be considered a weighted movement. And when we talk about compound, we're talking about multi-jointed movements, so things like squats and presses and deadlifts and pulls, things that are going to work more than one joint at a time, not isolation exercises from there. Isolation work can be thrown in there, but that's something we'll talk about in a couple of seconds. But all good programs should feature some form of resistance that you're pushing against, not just your body weight. But then your body weight obviously is then important, so some sort of gymnastics. So we're looking at very basic gymnastics. It doesn't have to be anything too ridiculous, but getting good at things like pull-ups, push-ups, maybe start doing some ring work, maybe eventually one day working up to muscle-ups and things like that if you really wanted to. But just in a general sense, in terms of being able to move your own body weight, is again an important element to have within your training. So those three things so far: mobility, your external resistance work, your compound work, and then obviously some gymnastics work using your body weight. The final thing is in your conditioning. So again, it doesn't have to be too complicated. I've got a prowler and a rower, but you could be just going out for runs. It could be, shuttles. It could be skipping. You think about, the array of conditioning equipment that's out there. As long as you're doing those four elements of your training, then everything should pretty much be in check. And you should be able to get as I say, a very, very good, a great level of fitness by concentrating on those four elements of your training. But then when you're looking at your accessories, what are they for? So I've given here a short list of things that generally most people will be utilising their accessories for. So you've got your prehab and your rehab stuff. So if you have an injury, an existing injury, or if you're trying to prevent injury, which is your prehab, then obviously that is an important element of accessory work. So it could be something that you have to do every day that's just going to help keep the shoulders mobile, or work on an old injury in the back or the knees or the hips. So doing your rehab work obviously is very important, so that can be considered an accessory. to your training. Fix weaknesses, obviously. So if your goal is strength work, if your goal is strength training, if you're an Olympic lifter, if you're a power lifter, strongman, and your goal is to get good at a particular lift, then obviously fixing weaknesses, that's where accessories can be very important for that person. Building muscle, obviously, bodybuilding, just looking better, feeling better, and obviously performing better, because the more muscle you have, the more the more opportunity you have to get strong, shall I say. I'll try and put the right word out there. But yeah, generally speaking, a bigger muscle has more potential for a better performance. Okay, it goes to a certain point. Obviously, you can get very big, and obviously it will affect maybe mobility and stuff from there. But from what we see, two athletes of the same area, if one has more muscle, generally they have more potential to get stronger, and therefore are a sort of a better all-round athlete from there. Practicing new skills. Obviously, if there's a new skill you want to get better at, then obviously you don't want to spend all your training doing it. But as part of an accessory work, you can throw it in there, and we'll talk about areas you can throw it into. But that allows you then to practice that skill and get good at it, and then eventually start incorporating it more into your training. So it gives you an opportunity to do those as well. Sport-specific work. Not a field that I have too much expertise in, because I don't generally train many athletes for sport-specific properties, but simple things like, if you are, a runner, for example, just getting your running training in, different styles of running training, stuff like that. So that could be considered accessories onto your weight training as we do it here. But obviously your weight training, if you are a runner, would be probably your accessory to your running, because you obviously want to use that to get better at running. But throwing in some sport-specific stuff, again, is a good thing to do as part of your, your accessory work. And then recovery, okay, something that not many people think of in terms of accessories, but actually recovery work is massively important. And again, we'll talk about different areas you can add those into from there. So they're sort of the areas of what accessory work is around your training. As I say, if you're looking at mobility, weight training, then your gymnastics and your conditioning is your sort of bulk work, then the accessories could be any one of these sort of areas from here that you can throw into it. So there's two options generally that we can work with. Option one is to put it within your training session. So when you're looking at a training session, generally I like to work it into three main blocks of training. So you've got your warm-up, which is generally between 5 to 15 minutes, depending on how much work you want to put in there, and as we'll talk in a second, what you want to add into your warm-up. You have your main training session, which could be as little as 10 minutes, but could be up to sort of 45 minutes. Some athletes could train longer than that, obviously, but most of the time, I'd say 90% of the time, most people will fall in that bracket and should fall into that bracket, really. And then your cool down. So again, 5 to 15 minutes, depending on what you're going to do. That's how long sort of the time bracket should sort of last. So you can play around with the numbers and make your session, last half an hour up to, an hour and a half by working with different things, depending how much stuff you have to fit into your sessions each day. Where would you fit it into? So it just depends on what you want to do. So when you're working on new skills, or if you're doing some prehab work or rehab work, you probably find that will work well in your warm-up. Okay, you could also do some sport-specific based stuff. So in your warm-up, you might decide you're going to do some ladder-based work. So you might be working on your agility or speed with a ladder, or you might do some plyometric work or something that's going to excite the system and get you better at your jumping or sort of track and field, things from there. Throwing and other stuff like that. So basically anything that really is going to enhance your sports-specific skill is going to be good to throw in at a warm-up stage, just because your nervous system is freshest, and you can start working into it from there. Obviously, you could also add those into your training. So within your training, that's where you probably want to start adding in your muscle building work, fixing weaknesses. Could be sport specific again. It could be prehab and rehab stuff. I mean, pretty much anything can go within the training. It's just how you organise that and how you do things. So for one example, an easy way to do it would be to have some active rest. You might decide that you're going to do bench press that day, and then for your active rest you might be doing some prehab work on your hips. So some form of hip stretch, some like a wall sit, a couch stretch or a wall sit or something like that. That's going to get you into different positions, but not tax the main mover, the bench press, obviously. So that can be an element of what you do from there. Sport specific based stuff, you could throw in some, you can put in some throws, or you can put in some ladder drills in between sort of lifts. You might decide to do some conditioning and boxing work, which a lot of MMA fighting coaches bring into their element. So you might do, for example, some hard prowler work, and then get your boxer to come in or your fighter to come in and do some pad work, because obviously then they're working under that fatigue state, and it's a bit more sport specific in terms of what they're going to do, getting used to working under fatigue and thinking under fatigue and elements like that. So that just gives you an example of why that would be implemented into the training and how that could be done. And then obviously your cool down. So again, rehab, prehab stuff is always good within this sort of realm, because you're looking to cool down the body and lower the nervous system excitement. So things like stretches and mobility work, additional work can be thrown in here. Maybe some weak muscles in the sort of your upper back or shoulder might need a bit of work. So you're obviously keeping that rehab coming through whilst you're also strengthening other muscles. So that gives you an element of how it will fit into the session. How you do it and what you do can be, there's a million options for that, but hopefully I've given you a couple of brief, quick explanations about how you can fit that in from there. The other option you have is obviously to fit it in within a week. So let's just use an example for, this one is a swimmer who wants to obviously, get strong and do the whole shebang from there. How would they fit in their accessories around there? So obviously their main points would be their swimming sessions. They would get a lot of sport-specific work in from there, so they don't generally have to do much sport-specific work within their weight training, for example. But then they can have a couple of weight training sessions in there as well. Those weight training sessions obviously work on their strength and their power, and obviously help them, get the most out of their swimming. And then I throw in a couple Wednesday and Friday here, a couple of active recovery sessions where they're working on mobility, maybe some weak muscles that they can then strengthen to help build towards their swimming. And then Sunday, we just got as a complete rest day. Some athletes don't even like having a complete rest day, so that you could throw in another active recovery day if you wanted to on there. The idea basically is to throw in the sport-specific training that they're doing, and then to throw in some elements of other training sessions as well, so their strength training, their mobility work, and all the other things from there. So that gives you an example of how you can throw accessory sessions within a training week from there. Now, if you're talking more of a general sort of purpose or a strength-based purpose, then obviously you'd have your more compound strength-based things on one session. Okay, so you do your squatting, your pressing, your pulling on these sessions here, and then you can have other sessions like Tuesday and Friday, Saturday I've thrown in here, which are more assistance work, more accessory work, so more bodybuilding based. So you can throw in your curls and your kickbacks and your reverse flies and leg extensions and stuff like that within these sessions. So that gives you an idea of how to throw accessory sessions in through the week along with your other weight training from there. Okay, so two options really you can take into account. I play about with both because it just depends on what your working week is like and how you fit things around your training. But the idea of accessories, as I say, is they are just that icing on the cherry on the cake. They're not the be all and end all. You can put a lot of effort and emphasis into your accessory work, and actually it could just be an element of having to work harder in the main principles of what you're doing, your mobility, your strength, your gymnastics based work, and your conditioning based work. Okay, so when you're looking at adding accessories into your training, think about what it is you're trying to improve, and then that should really open the door into how you add that into your training and how important it is into your day. And as I say, if you don't have much time to add to your training sessions, then a couple of accessory sort of sessions in the week that last no more than sort of 20 minutes, 15-20 minutes could be a real bonus to those sessions and help you train for longer and train better basically from there. So I hope you enjoyed the videos, guys. Over the weeks, obviously, we've been working with training. The next stage is then going to be mindset. So I'm actually going to start introducing you to a realm of things that I believe, as I say, are important and how that fits into your training sessions from there. If you have any sort of questions or any videos you'd like me to record, then obviously throw in some comments down below. Pass me an email, shout at me when you see me in the gym. Basically, I'm here to try and give you guys as much information as possible, as always, and any questions are good questions, okay, guys? So I hope you've enjoyed that. Just be awesome. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys next week. Catch you later.